Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a series of science-backed tools that can seriously accelerate fat loss. And you know what the best part is? A lot of them are completely free. You've probably heard the classic formula a million times: calories in versus calories out. And look, that's a fundamental truth of metabolism, for sure. But there's a much more powerful and frankly, way more interesting system at play that most of us just completely overlook. And what is that overlooked system? Well, it's your very own nervous system. In this explainer, we're going to show you how your brain and your nerves are the real master controllers of fat burning and exactly how you can use your own biology to get the results you want. Okay, so let's get right into the core concept here, this brain-fat connection. To really get how to burn body fat effectively, you have to know it's not just one thing that happens. It's a very specific two-step process. So first, fat has to be mobilized. That just means it gets released from your fat cells. Then second, it has to be oxidized or, burned for energy. Now, the absolutely crucial point is that both of these steps get triggered by one key molecule, adrenaline, which you might also know as epinephrine. And this is the part that changes literally everything. We're not talking about some general stress adrenaline just floating around in your system. For targeted fat loss, you need nerves to release that adrenaline directly onto your fat cells. This is a game changer because it means we can use specific actions to flip that fat-burning switch whenever we want. So how do we actually trigger this local adrenaline release? Well, our first tool is a true secret weapon. And you might be surprised to find out that one of the best ways to do it has absolutely nothing to do with going to a gym. This idea goes way back to some classic research in the 60s and 70s. Scientists were totally puzzled by these people who could overeat and just not gain weight. And what do they find? They had one thing in common. They were fidgeters. They were always making these small, subtle movements. We now call this phenomenon NEAT, which stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Basically, all the calories you burn that aren't from your actual workout. So yeah, all those little habits, bouncing your knee under the table, pacing around when you're on the phone, they're actually signals. They're constantly telling your nerves to release that adrenaline right onto your fat cells. It's a super low effort way to keep the fat burning process humming along all day. And believe it or not, the effect really adds up. It can be enough to offset hundreds of calories. Okay, our next tool also fires up your nervous system, but in a much more intense way. Let's talk about cold exposure. It's incredibly popular right now, but honestly, most people are using it completely wrong if their goal is fat loss. See, the common idea is to get used to the cold, right? To adapt so it's not so bad. But from a fat loss perspective, that's the exact opposite of what you want to do. The goal is not to become a polar bear. The goal is to shiver, because shivering is the powerful metabolic trigger we're after. Here's the science, plain and simple. When you shiver, your muscles release a molecule called succinate. That succinate then travels to a special kind of fat called brown fat, which is just packed with mitochondria, your cell's little energy factories. The succinate basically flips a switch on this brown fat, turning it into a furnace that just torches other fat to generate heat and warm you up. Pretty cool, right? So, how do you make sure you're getting the most shiver for your buck? Try this protocol 1 to 3 times a week. Get into some cold water. It should be uncomfortable but safe, and stay in just until you start to shiver. Then, get out for a minute or two, but don't dry off. As soon as you stop shivering, get right back in. Repeating this for 3 rounds is key because it stops your body from adapting and keeps that fat-burning shiver response cranked up high. Now, let's take these same principles, this idea of targeted activation, and bring it into our workouts. It's not just about working hard, it's about working smarter. We can actually structure our exercise to strategically drain our fuel tanks, which forces our body to burn more fat. So we can pretty much simplify exercise into these 3 basic categories based on intensity. You've got your all-out sprints, or SIT. You have your intense but submaximal circuits, which is HIIT. And then you have your steady-state cardio, or MICT. The real secret for fat loss isn't that one of these is better than the others. It's all about how and when you put them together. And the crucial piece of that puzzle is a hormone, insulin. Think of it like a switch. When your insulin is high, which is usually right after you eat, your body is biologically blocked from burning fat for fuel. It's switched off. But when insulin is low, like when you haven't eaten in a while, that switch is flipped on, unlocking your fat stores so they can be used as your main source of energy. So here's the protocol that puts all of that knowledge into action. Step 1, you burn through your sugar stores. You start with 20 to 60 minutes of high-intensity stuff, like lifting weights or HIIT, to use up all your stored sugar, which is called glycogen. Step 2, you burn fat. You immediately follow that up with 20 to 60 minutes of moderate cardio. Because its main fuel is gone, your body has no choice but to start tapping into your fat reserves. And here's the pro tip. If you do this in a fasted state when your insulin is already low, you will absolutely supercharge the entire effect. All right, last but not least, let's talk about a few chemical levers. These are some well-researched compounds that can actually amplify all the work we've just talked about. Just think of them as boosters for your results, not as a replacement for the work itself. First up, good old caffeine. If you take it about 30 minutes before a workout, it's been proven to increase that fat-mobilizing adrenaline. Second is yerba mate. This one works a little differently. It increases a gut hormone called GLP-1, which helps manage blood sugar and can also help with fat burning, especially when you have it before you exercise. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? It's that you have direct control over the biological levers that can accelerate your fat loss. When you understand how to use your nervous system, you can move way beyond just counting calories. From a little fidgeting and some strategic shivering to smarter workouts, you now have a whole toolbox of science-based strategies that puts you in the driver's seat. You have the tools, and now you understand the science. The only real question left is, which one of these levers are you going to pull first?